They said I was used to scraps, so they sat me and my kids in the laundry room for Thanksgiving. Not the guest room, not the porch, the laundry room. There was a folding table wedged between the dryer and a shelf stacked with detergent bottles, 2 plastic chairs, 1 wobbly, and a booster seat they hadn't bothered to clean. That was our place at the family feast. My sister, Maggie, said it with a smile, the kind of smile that hides a knife behind it. "It's just cozier in here," she chirped, waving her perfectly manicured hand. "You know, easier with the little ones." I stood there holding a homemade pumpkin pie, wrapped in foil, still warm. Lily clutched my pant leg. Josh looked up at me, confused, his arms full of the napkins Maggie had asked him to carry from the car. I didn't speak, just nodded and followed her down the narrow hall like a guest at my own execution. The room smelled like dryer sheets and faint mildew. The floor was cold tile, and someone had spilled fabric softener near the sink. They didn't even clear the lint traps. Outside, I could hear the laughter from the dining room, the clink of wine glasses, chairs scraping against hardwood floors, silverware tapping china. My cousins, my uncles, everyone dressed like it was a magazine shoot. Everyone pretending this was just another normal holiday. I set the pie on the laundry table. It took up almost half the surface. I looked down at it and realised there wouldn't be enough room for plates. Lily tugged on my sleeve. "Daddy, why aren't we sitting with them?" I didn't have a good answer. "Because we've got our own space," I said, forcing a half smile. Josh, always trying to protect his little sister, added, "It's probably better in here, quieter." His voice wavered at the end. The door stayed cracked open just enough for me to see the adult table, stretching across the living room like something out of a catalogue. Candlelight, polished silver. A roasted turkey the size of a car battery in the centre, glistening under a golden glaze. There were place cards, printed, not handwritten. Our names weren't on any of them. I caught a glimpse of my brother-in-law walking past with a second helping. He didn't even glance our way. I tried to keep the kids distracted. Told Josh to help me unwrap the pie, asked Lily to fold the napkins into little fans like we used to. Anything to keep their minds busy, to keep them from feeling the sting I was swallowing whole. Every time the door creaked a little wider, I could hear someone say something that made the whole room burst out laughing. We weren't part of the joke. We weren't part of the family. We were background noise. My sister peeked in once, just long enough to drop off a pitcher of lukewarm cider. "Hope this helped," she said. "We're just a little full out there." Then she disappeared again, heels clicking down the hall like punctuation. Josh stared at the pie. "You spent all night making this," he said. I nodded. "And we're eating it?" "In here?" "Yeah," I replied. "We are." There was a beat of silence. Then he asked it, the question I'd been trying not to hear. "Did we do something wrong?" That one cracked something inside me. I looked at both of them. My kids, my world, sitting on mismatched chairs next to a box of bleach. "No," I said quietly. "We didn't." But I knew something had broken. Not in them, in me. Something I'd spent years patching together with loyalty, patience, and second chances. And this time I wasn't sure I'd be able to fix it. After dinner, I didn't make a scene. I didn't raise my voice or slam the door on the way out. That would have made it too easy for them to paint me as the angry one. Instead, I cleaned up our corner. I folded the napkins Lily had smoothed out with such care, wiped the table with one of Maggie's floral dishcloths I found tucked behind a bottle of bleach, packed up what was left of the pie, barely touched. Josh carried the coats. Lily held my hand tighter than usual, like she could feel the weight I wasn't saying out loud. I thanked Maggie on our way out. That part still stings to remember. She hugged me lightly, just fingertips and perfume. "Hope the kids had fun," she said, not quite looking me in the eyes. I just nodded, didn't trust myself to open my mouth. Once we were in the truck, I buckled the kids in and climbed behind the wheel. The engine turned over like it was struggling to breathe. I didn't turn on the radio, didn't say anything. Lily fell asleep before we hit the freeway. Josh stayed quiet, staring out the window at nothing. I glanced at him once. His reflection in the glass looked older than it should have. Back home, I unlocked the door to our small apartment. The hallway light flickered like always. I carried Lily to bed, covered her with the blanket she always kicked off. Josh went to his room without a word. I stood in the kitchen and stared at the leftover pie on the counter. I should have put it away. Instead, I took the foil off and cut myself a slice, then threw the rest straight in the trash. It wasn't about the food, it was the principle. That damn pie had more dignity than I did that night. I made coffee I didn't need, let it grow cold while I leaned against the sink, mug in hand, staring at the patch of paint I'd never gotten around to fixing. No thoughts, just silence. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't always come with shouting matches or slammed doors. Sometimes, it creeps in with paper plates and polite smiles. And it hurts worse because no one else sees it happening. They just think you're quiet. They don't know you're bleeding inside. I scrolled through my phone without reading anything, checked emails I didn't care about, opened social media and closed it again. Every face I saw looked like they belonged to people who had a place to go, a table where they mattered. I rinsed out the coffee cup, dried it, put it back exactly where it belonged. It was the only thing that made sense. Later that night, I stood outside on the balcony, wrapped in an old hoodie, watching the street below. A stray dog walked past, limping but steady. Something about that stuck with me. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was just still. Still enough to hear my own breath, still enough to feel something shift inside. Like a door closing, a latch clicking. I didn't know what would come next, but I knew this. I wouldn't spend another holiday invisible. They'd made sure of that. Before all of this, Maggie and I were close. Closer than most siblings I knew. She used to braid Lily's hair while I made breakfast, humming whatever old country song Dad used to sing off-key in the garage. Sunday afternoons she'd swing by unannounced with grocery bags and a bottle of cheap wine, claiming it was brother-sister maintenance. Back then it felt like family meant something. When my ex left, Maggie was the first one to show up. She brought mac and cheese, extra blankets, and a stack of bedtime books she said her kids had outgrown. I remember sitting on the floor of the living room that night while she read to Lily, doing all the voices. Josh fell asleep with his head on her shoulder. She tucked them both in like they were her own. Afterwards, she handed me a cup of cocoa and said, "You've got this, Mason, and when you don't, I've got you." I believed her. I remember the time she helped me paint the kids' bedroom. We stayed up past midnight, arguing over whether clouds should be cartoonish or realistic. She picked a shade of sky blue that still covers the walls today. Every time I look at it, I see the brush strokes she left behind. The ones I never fixed because they reminded me of her. There were birthdays she made magical. She once dressed up as a pirate for Josh's 5th and let the kids bury her shoes in the sandbox. For Lily's 6th, she baked a 3-tiered unicorn cake from scratch, even though she worked late that week and burned the first batch. She never complained. Back then, I couldn't imagine a world where she'd look through me like I didn't exist. But it started small, just like cracks in drywall. She stopped coming over. Then she stopped answering texts right away. Holidays became complicated, then rotating. Then, we're doing something small this year. And slowly, without ever saying it, she positioned herself as the hostess of a family I no longer felt part of. I didn't want to believe it, so I held on to the memories. The problem is nostalgia lies. It tells you they didn't mean it, that maybe you misunderstood, that love doesn't disappear. It just gets buried under stress and time and misunderstandings. But it does disappear. It erodes, especially when one side stops watering the roots. I remember the last time she came by the apartment just to visit. She sat on the couch, flipping through my journal like she used to. She landed on a page about resilience, something I'd written in the middle of a long night after back-to-back shifts. "This is good," she said. "You should post this somewhere." I shrugged. Nobody wants to hear from a tired single dad. She looked at me, serious for a second. "That's exactly why they need to." I nodded. I remember thinking, she still sees me. But that was 2 Thanksgivings ago. Hey. Now she can't even make eye contact while assigning me to the room where people rinse bleach out of sheets. The contrast between then and now isn't subtle. It's brutal. It's the difference between being held and being handled. And it makes me wonder, was I ever really in her circle? Or just a charity project with a shelf life? Looking back, it didn't fall apart overnight. It wore down like a tyre you forget to check. Slow, silent, then suddenly flat. The signs were all there. I just didn't want to read them. First, she stopped calling me Mace. It was always Mason after that, formal, clipped, like I was someone she barely tolerated at work. I brushed it off at the time, thought maybe she was just tired. Everyone was tired those days. Then there was the group chat. She started leaving me out of the planning threads for family events. I'd get forwarded screenshots from a cousin days later, long after the details had been ironed out. I wasn't being consulted, I was being informed, like a distant acquaintance who might show up if invited early enough. When I texted to ask if I could bring dessert for Dad's retirement party, she replied, "We've got it covered, maybe just bring napkins." Napkins. That one landed harder than I expected. The invitations changed too. Less personal, more generic. My name typed in lowercase, no exclamation mark. Never a "we can't wait to see you." Just dates and times, like a dentist appointment no one looked forward to. And when we did show up, she always seemed distracted. One time at a barbecue, Lily spilled juice on the deck. I bent to wipe it up, and Maggie winced like I'd committed a felony. "Can you watch her a little closer next time?" she muttered, not loud enough for anyone else to hear, but just enough for me to feel it in my gut. Josh asked if he could play catch with his cousins. Maggie's husband, Greg, told him the boys were already in the middle of a competitive round, and maybe next time would be better. There was no next time. It wasn't just the way they looked past me. It was how they edited me out of things, without even noticing. Christmas photos on social media, cropped just before my arm. Family emails signed, "Love from all of us," but never sent to me directly. When I pointed it out once, Maggie laughed and said, "You're being sensitive." Sensitive. That word's a bullet in disguise. She started praising my resilience in public, but never offering help in private. Like I was a feel-good story she could pull out at brunch. I remember a Sunday when she brought over leftovers, fancy charcuterie scraps from a baby shower she hosted. She left them on my porch in a paper bag, labelled "for you guys," like we were stray animals she'd remembered to feed. I stood there, staring at that bag for a long time. It wasn't what she brought, it was what it said. "You're not family, you're charity." The worst part, I kept pretending it was fine, because when someone you love slowly rewrites your place in their world, it feels safer to adjust than to confront. But every adjustment chips away at you. One day you wake up, and you don't recognise the version of yourself that keeps making excuses for being pushed aside. I thought I was protecting my kids from feeling it, but the truth is, they'd already noticed. And that's what really broke me. I didn't plan revenge. That's not how I operate. But I did start preparing for something different, something that didn't involve waiting around for scraps of dignity to fall from the family table. It began with a notebook, a cheap spiral-bound one I picked up at the gas station. I started writing things down, not poetry, not rants, just moments. Things my kids said that deserved to be remembered. Thoughts that came to me at red lights. How it felt to be erased without anyone saying it out loud. I didn't know what I was building. I just knew I had to put it somewhere or it would rot inside me. The next step was subtle. I cancelled my auto-renewing memberships, streaming services, monthly wine club my sister signed me up for years ago, even the family Zoom account I'd been paying for without anyone knowing. One by one, I cut the cords that tied me to people who couldn't even look me in the eye anymore. I took a hard look at my finances too. Not because I was in trouble, I've always lived lean, but because I needed control. I started moving small amounts into a separate savings account under just my name. Quiet dollars, no paper trails shared with anyone, just a cushion to land on when the time came to jump. At night, after the kids went to bed, I researched. Not how to get back at anyone, but how to get ahead for once. I found a writing platform where people shared personal essays. Raw, real, messy. I read story after story. Single mums, veterans, blue-collar workers, kids who grew up invisible. And every time I finished one, something clicked in my chest. You're not alone. That's when I started posting little pieces of my own. Under a fake name at first, just fragments. Thoughts like, sometimes the loudest thing in a room is being ignored. People responded. Some shared their own stories. Others just left hearts. One woman messaged, I thought I was the only one. Boom. That one stuck with me, and then came the email. It was short, professional, and completely unexpected. Hi Mason, a colleague shared one of your posts with me. I run a non-profit that works with fathers navigating isolation and family estrangement. Would you be open to chatting about possibly contributing something more formal for our next newsletter? Her name was Eliza Kincaid, founder of a group called The Honest Table. We scheduled a call. She listened. Really listened. Asked questions with a weight. Not just about what I wrote, but why I started writing at all. At the end of the call, she said, "You have something people need, and not everyone with a story knows how to tell it like you do." I didn't know what to say. I think I just muttered a thank you and stared at my screen like it might vanish. She followed up with a proposal. A featured piece in their December issue, honorarium included. It wasn't about the money though. It was about being seen without needing to audition. I didn't tell Maggie, didn't tell anyone. Instead, I started sketching out the piece during lunch breaks. At night, whenever I could steal 15 minutes before the next homework assignment or bedtime routine. It wasn't polished, but it was mine. Every word I typed felt like reclaiming a brick from the wall they built to box me out. By the end of the week, I had something close to a draft. And when I read it out loud to myself in the dark kitchen, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Not anger, not sadness, just resolve. I didn't know what door this would open, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to stand in the hallway anymore. The truth didn't hit me like a punch. It came slow, layered, quiet, and undeniable. It started when I logged into the community platform I'd been writing on. I hadn't posted anything new in a few days, but the notifications were piling up. Dozens of new followers. A message request blinking in the corner. I opened it, expecting another stranger thanking me for a story. But this one was different. "Hey Mason, I saw your piece reposted on a family coaching site. Thought you might want to know. Looks like someone took your words and signed their own name." I read it twice, then followed the link. There it was, my story. The same rhythm, the same phrases, word for word in some places. But the byline didn't say Mason Clark. It said Margaret Holloway. My sister, Maggie. I sat frozen at the kitchen table, the cursor blinking, like it was daring me to move. She hadn't even bothered to change the details much, just softened them, made herself the narrator, the brave, overworked mother trying to find her way back into a disconnected family. I clicked deeper, found an entire profile she'd built using my writing, some of it slightly reworded, others copied wholesale. There were comments praising her vulnerability, applause for her raw honesty, a pinned post announcing her spot as a panelist at a regional conference for family mental health advocates. It was surreal, like watching someone dress up in your skin and collect trophies for bleeding in your place. The next morning, I checked her social media accounts. There it was, a status update with a link to the article. Humbled to share a piece of my heart. Healing is never linear, but every step matters. Underneath, rows of hearts and fire emojis. Old friends commenting, "So proud of you, girl." One even said, "You've always had such a way with words." I couldn't look away. Every line she'd posted was one I had written in the dark, holding onto my kids like they were the only thing keeping me from disappearing. And now it was a costume she wore for claps. I didn't confront her right away. I needed to know how deep it went. I reached out to Eliza from The Honest Table. She responded within minutes. "I'm sorry you're seeing this. We were actually sent that same piece by a colleague weeks ago, with Maggie listed as the author. We declined it, but it looked familiar, so I'd been trying to figure out why." So she'd been shopping my words around, passing them off like party favours, trying to score sympathy in circles I didn't even know existed. That's when the betrayal clicked into place. It wasn't just that she'd pushed me out of her home. She'd also tried to co-opt the only thing I'd built on my own. She didn't just ignore my story, she hijacked it, stripped the struggle, took the shine. She wanted the power of my pain without the price of having lived it. I sat with that for a long time. Didn't speak, didn't rage, just stared at the glow of the screen in front of me until it all felt like static. And in that silence, something hardened. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a move, and whether she realised it or not, she'd just handed me the final piece I needed. not to retaliate, to reclaim. I didn't need to corner her. People like Maggie eventually expose themselves. You just have to give them enough rope. So I did the one thing she never expected. I invited her to coffee. Just the two of us. No kids, no family. Neutral ground. I picked a quiet spot downtown, where the tables were spaced out and the baristas wore aprons with ironic slogans. She showed up wearing sunglasses, though it was overcast. The type of performance she thought passed for subtle. We made small talk. I let her lead. She asked about the kids, mentioned how busy things have been, and sprinkled in just enough fake warmth to make it feel like a reunion. When our drinks arrived, I slid my phone onto the table, screen down. A quiet signal. I'd already hit record. I looked her in the eye and said, "So, you've been writing lately?" Her shoulders tensed, not a lot, but enough. She took a sip, buying herself a second. "Yeah, here and there. Just some things I've been thinking about, processing." I nodded slowly. "Saw that article, the one about the single parent left out at the holidays. Sounded familiar?" She gave a little laugh, light and practiced. "I mean, we all have stories like that, don't we?" "Do we?" I said. "Word for word." Her mouth twitched. That's when I pulled out a printed copy of my original post, the one I wrote months ago. Right underneath, I placed her version. I had every paragraph lined up. I didn't need to say a word. The comparison spoke for itself. She glanced down, then back up, eyes darting like someone looking for the nearest exit. "I was inspired," she said finally. "It wasn't like I stole anything. I just felt connected to it." "You changed the names," I replied, my voice calm. "But you didn't change the pain, because it wasn't yours to begin with." She opened her mouth, but I kept going. "I've got timestamps, screenshots, emails, and now this conversation." She stiffened. "You're recording me?" I looked her dead in the eye. "I am protecting myself." There it was, silence. Not the awkward kind, the exposed kind. The kind that only shows up when someone realizes the curtain's been yanked clean off. I didn't yell, didn't accuse. I just gathered my things, stood up, and said, "You don't get to wear my story like it's a jacket you can take off when the room gets too warm." I left her sitting there with 2 half-empty mugs and a stack of evidence that said everything I didn't need to. Later that night, I sent an email to the platform where her post had gone up, attached the documentation, explained everything. Within 24 hours, the article was pulled, her profile deactivated, a public apology posted, naming me as the original author. But I wasn't done. I submitted my revised piece to a national column I'd followed for years, a place where real voices mattered. I didn't write it to prove anything. I wrote it because I was ready to stop whispering. 3 days later, I got a reply from the editor. They wanted it for their holiday feature. Front page, full spread, photo, bio, and a personal note from the staff about how the piece had moved them. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, just staring at the message. Not grinning, not gloating, just breathing. I'd set the trap, but I didn't spring it out of spite. I did it so I could finally step out of her shadow, into a light I built for myself. The unravelling wasn't dramatic. No screaming, no public fallout. Just a quiet shift. One thread pulled and everything came loose. After the magazine ran my story, the ripple started slow. A few shares, then a flood. Emails poured in. Strangers thanking me. Other fathers writing from shelters. A mother of 3 in Montana who said, "You wrote the version of my life I've never been able to say out loud." Every message chipped away at the doubt Maggie had tried to plant in me for years. A week later, my phone rang. It was a producer from a well-known podcast that focused on real-life resilience. They'd read my piece and wanted to feature me. "Your voice, Sasika," she said, "doesn't sound like it's trying to prove anything. It just tells the truth." I agreed, hesitantly. Not because I doubted the story, but because I knew what came next. Maggie found out within days. She didn't call. She didn't text. She posted a long-winded status update filled with vague references to family betrayal, manipulation, and how some people will twist anything to look like a victim. No names, of course, but everyone close enough knew who it was aimed at. Then came the unfollows, the group chat silence, The relatives who suddenly stopped liking my posts. No confrontation, just quiet disapproval masquerading as neutrality. She couldn't discredit the story, so she went after the storyteller. I let it happen, because what they didn't realize was I didn't need their approval anymore. I had something stronger than permission. I had proof. The digital trail didn't lie. The timestamps, the email threads, the draft history with my name on it, the audio from our coffee shop conversation. I never used any of it publicly. I didn't need to, but I made sure she knew I still had it. Eventually, the conference that had once invited Maggie as a speaker reached out to me. A staff member had stumbled across my podcast interview and connected the dots. "We're reviewing some submissions," she said delicately, "and we'd like to invite you instead." I declined, not because I wasn't honoured, but because I didn't want to build my platform on her collapse. That wasn't the story I wanted to tell. Still, word spread. Quietly, discreetly. In inboxes and phone calls and private conversations. People started realising who had been behind the words that moved them and who had simply borrowed them. By the end of the month, her online presence looked dim, pages unpublished, speaking events retracted. Mutual friends started circling back, asking to hear my side. I didn't give them much. What would I say? That my sister had taken my struggle and tried to cash it in, like a coupon for sympathy? That she'd dressed herself in borrowed wounds and hoped no one would notice the fit was wrong? No, I just told them I'd told the truth, that's all. And really it was, because the collapse wasn't loud, it didn't need to be. It was the silence that followed, the absence of applause, the empty inbox where opportunities used to land, the growing awareness that you can only wear someone else's story for so long before the seams split. She wanted to be seen. Now she was. Just not the way she hoped. The last time Maggie reached out, it wasn't an apology. It was a text. "Can we talk? This whole thing's gotten out of hand. We're family, Mason. Don't let something this small destroy that." Small. She called it small. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed and blinked out. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, but I didn't type anything. Not right away, not because I didn't have a response, but because I finally understood there was nothing left to salvage. A few days later, she showed up at my building unannounced. I watched her through the peephole. She stood there holding a casserole dish, like we were in some sitcom about reconciliation. Her eyes were puffy. She didn't knock, just waited. I didn't open the door. I let her walk back down those steps with her offering untouched. I think that was the moment she knew. It wasn't about bitterness. It was about boundaries. There was no dramatic confrontation. No scorched earth monologue. Just silence. Intentional. Final. I spent the evening with Josh and Lily, building a blanket fort in the living room. We made popcorn, watched a movie we'd already seen twice, and laughed too loud at all the wrong parts. No tension, no pretending. Just us. After the kids went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote my final reply to her. "We're not on the same page anymore. We're not even in the same book. I wish you well, but this chapter's closed. For good." I didn't sign it with love. I didn't reread it before hitting send. There was no need. A week later, I removed her from my emergency contact list, changed the locks, deleted old threads, unfollowed, unfriended, unlinked. It didn't feel like revenge, it felt like air, like finally opening a window in a room I hadn't realised was suffocating me. People talk about forgiveness like it's a favour you owe, but what they don't tell you is that sometimes the most honest kind of peace isn't reconciliation. It's removal. It's choosing yourself when the other person won't stop choosing your silence. I didn't hate Maggie. I just couldn't keep shrinking to fit into the version of me she was comfortable with, the version that stayed quiet, that didn't question things, that played the grateful underdog in a family playbook I never agreed to. I walked away without the fireworks, without the guilt, without asking anyone to take sides, because I wasn't interested in making her the villain. I just didn't want her in my story anymore, and that decision, clean, quiet, deliberate, freed up a part of me I hadn't accessed in years. The part that finally understood, loyalty without respect is just a cage, and I'd spent too long calling it home. I didn't know it was healing at first, it just felt quiet. Not the silence of being ignored or left out or talked over. This was different, stillness with substance. the kind that wraps around you like a blanket instead of choking you like a rope. The first thing I did was repaint the walls. The kids picked out colours. Lily wanted something soft and warm. Josh picked navy. We played music, laid drop cloths, and spent an entire weekend turning our space into a home that felt entirely ours. No hand-me-down furniture, no reminders of dinners where we weren't welcome, just colour and laughter and walls that no longer whispered someone else's judgment. I cleared the fridge of old invitations, tossed out the photos where my smile didn't quite reach my eyes. I replaced them with drawings, silly notes, and a quote Lily taped up that said, "We're not broken, we're building." She made that up. I kept it. Every morning started the same. Coffee before sunrise, notebook open, pen moving. I didn't always write about the past. Sometimes it was a memory, sometimes a list, sometimes nothing at all. But the act of putting something on the page, of giving shape to what I'd spent so long hiding, changed the way I carried it. I found a rhythm. I cooked more, read more, took long walks with Scout, our old mutt, who never cared whether I had a published story or not, just that I showed up. I started a little garden on the balcony. Cherry tomatoes, rosemary, a stubborn basil plant that kept leaning toward the sun like it was chasing something, kind of like me. One afternoon, Eliza from the Honours Table called and said, "We'd love to have you come speak, not as a guest, permanently. Think advisory role. You've got a perspective we need." I almost said no, not because I wasn't honoured, but because I'd built something out of stillness, and I didn't want to lose it. She said, "We're not asking you to change who you are. We're just offering a bigger table." That word hit different now. Table. I used to think the worst part was not being invited to sit. But it turns out the worst part was thinking I ever needed their permission in the first place. So I said yes. And I told my story again. On bigger stages, in print, on air. Not for revenge, not even for recognition. But because every time I shared it, someone else found the courage to share theirs. That's the ripple no one can take credit for, but everyone can feel. Lily started writing too. Josh joined the robotics club. I watched them grow into themselves without shrinking, without apology. And I knew I was doing something right, not because life looked perfect, but because it finally felt like it belonged to us. Maggie never responded to my last message. I heard through a cousin that she moved, deleted a bunch of her social media, started keeping to herself. I don't wish her harm, but I also don't miss her. Some people exit quietly. Some exits are the healing. 1 year later on Thanksgiving morning, we didn't go anywhere. We stayed home, made waffles, watched movies in pajamas. Josh played a song he learned on guitar. Lily made name cards for the three of us and set the table like it was a feast. And you know what? It was. We didn't have linen napkins or polished silver. But we had peace. We had presence. We had something that didn't require performance. And in that space, in that simplicity, I realised the rebirth didn't come from burning bridges. It came from building something new on the other side. No announcements, no need to prove anything. Just quiet, steady wholeness. And now, if you've made it this far, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to walk away from someone who told your story without ever asking how it felt to live it? What would you have done if your truth got stolen, worn like a mask, then paraded as inspiration? Tell me, because your voice matters too. And maybe, just maybe, someone else out there needs your story to begin their own. I'm listening.